This is it.
Okay.
Welcome to the public hearing portion of the Civil Service Merit Board meeting, September 10th. And let's go ahead for purposes of the record. We'll have a brief call of the roll. Jane Roberts.
Present.
Stephanie Taylor.
Present.
And I'm Bill Lyons, and I'm present. And that does come, we do constitute a quorum. And we have one item on the agenda for the public hearing, and that is the rule amendments to the Civil Service rules and regulations. We did have a workshop, of course, last time on this, and a lot of information was presented. So the purpose of the public hearing is, not surprisingly, to hear from the public. And we, the way it will work is if we have anybody willing to address us, we will listen, but we will then engage in any topics that are brought up, as well as some that members of the board may bring up once we commence the actual business meeting. So the public hearing is to listen if anybody has something to present us. And so I guess we can start with, has anybody signed up to speak?
Nobody, I have the sign-in sheet.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh, somebody, oh,
Okay.
Stephanie, I'm sorry.
See,
The floor is yours.
Good afternoon. After talking with some employees, there was just really one sticking point that they wanted me to bring before the board. Most of the changes, really surprisingly ruffled few feathers. I think the changes to like credit military service, those are some great changes that bring us, alongside what other municipalities are doing. The one concern was the legal representation of the board being moved to being the law department. This board was designed to be separate from any political affiliation, and by having the primary legal representation for the board being someone appointed by the mayor, they see that as definitely a potential conflict. I know the rule does allow the chair to ask for the law director for outside legal counsel, but I'd love to have more discussion around that, to hear more about historically, has the board ever used the law department as its primary legal counsel, and just for you to consider that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody else who is here or wishes to address the board in public forum? Oh, yes.
Okay, if I stand here, I need to stand there.
I think right there.
I kind of went over the rules. One of the things I would like more discussion about is a passing. I think you proposed 65 is passing for a promotional test. I don't think 65 is passing for anybody's test. And I also would like to see a discussion about the rule of 10 as opposed to the rule of 5. Because if you have a 65 is passing and then a rule of 10, that's everybody that takes the test. You have to change, you subsequently had to change any kind of process as far as weeding out candidates. I would like to have that discussed.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Let's see. I believe for the amendment process would proceed at once we get to the formal board meeting. So if there's no objection here, I would move that we adjourn this public hearing and then move to the actual board meeting to discuss our approval of these rules, and especially in concert with what we've heard or what other commissioners may feel. Motion?
Second.
Motion second. All those in favor of adjourning, let's start by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. So then let us begin the actual meeting of the board today. I think the calling the roll should apply here as well. We have that recorded, and then we will get into the approval of the minutes first from the last meeting. We have a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? We had a motion to second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 The rules are approved. Let's have our reports from with Missy. You want to do the civil service staff report, and then Kelly will do the HR.
Okay. I wanted to follow up on the city council workshop that was in August, and I just wanted to mention that Kelly and Chad, they did a great job on gathering all that information and presenting it to council. I think it went really well. I know Kelly will talk more about that. But I did want to show you this handout that you have. It looks like this. And it just, the top shows our applications over time. And I just wanted to note that here this last fiscal year, we've had a big increase in applications, but if you'll look below, not only an increase, but an increase in qualified applicants. And a couple of those I wanted to mention was Help Desk Tech. Last year we had 25 qualified applicants, but this year we had 133. So that was a big increase. And also for administrative specialists, we had 30 last year that were qualified, and then we went up to 198 this year. So I just kind of wanted to point out that we are getting a lot more applicants, but we're getting even more qualified applicants too. So we're really excited about that. And the next handout I have is this one. This is our testing distribution. Jane had asked about this last time, since you're looking at the maybe changing the cutoff score. So this first page is the written test distribution, and these are our multiple choice exams. And these we administer through our eSkill online testing platform. And they range from 50 to 100 questions. And these tests were given between July 23 and July 25, and our average score was 77. So that's the cutoff for the written. The next page is our training and experience questionnaires. And these are essay questions that are in the application. And they can be used alone, or sometimes we use them with a multiple choice exam. And these were given in the last fiscal year. And the average score on those are 85. And below it lists the tests that we gave for the T&E, and also on that first sheet it lists all the tests that we gave that went into that score for the written exam. Does anybody have any questions about that?
Well, I say I have one question. I mean, it's obviously great that we have so many more qualified applicants. I'm just wondering what you attribute that to. I mean, this isn't some random change from year to year. It's something obviously happening.
Well, Nick has helped us a lot with getting us the advertising budget. So we advertise a lot. HR goes out, they do job fairs and contact and do a lot. I think it's just all that together that's made a difference. And also, you know, the city's working on now for us to be a model employer and getting the word out for that. And I think just all that together has helped us a lot.
Great. Anybody else have any questions?
Very good.
Good work.
I also included our posting statistics there. The update on Oracle is still planned for January. We'll let you know if that changes. We have 1 grievance and 3 disciplinary appeals going on right now. And then I wanted to mention we're interviewing for our open position. We've got a second round of interviews going on next week. We're really excited. We've got a really good group of candidates, so it's going to be a really hard decision. But we're really excited about that. And I think that's pretty much all I have, unless you have any questions.
Just a comment. Mr. Bradshaw's here again. Indicates he might not be regular attendance.
It's my last day. It's my last day.
Okay. Good. Well, we before, but can't tell you how much we appreciate all of your work in the interim. Keeping things.
Thank you. It's been an honor to serve the board. Hopefully served you well, and that's bittersweet, but it's been a great year.
And I know you've been helping Missy, in the transition, which is great. So I think it's all the batons have been handed off, and ready to run.
We're really
And
gonna
running.
miss them. We're gonna miss them a lot.
You bet. Okay. Go back there.
Good afternoon. I'll keep it pretty brief. Missy covered most of the things that I wanted to talk about, but from the council, city council workshop, we were really excited to be able to share the past, the present, and the future of the Human Resource Department. It has been now 5 years that the Human Resource Department has been in existence, and we were able to talk about some of the things that we have done and working with specifically the Benefits Department, working with Civil Service to be able to share a lot of the data that we have. And we will continue to share additional data with you all. But I also wanted to share a little bit about what we talked about in the future, not going so much on the past, but moving forward in the future. Last year, the HR department wrote a application to work with the Harvard Bloomberg. We were not accepted. So this year, we rewrote it, and I'm very excited to tell you that we were accepted into a Harvard Bloomberg consortium for 18 months to look at the management of talent. And so excited about this opportunity. I mean, next week, David Brace, LaKenya Middlebrook, and Rachel Butzler with the Public Service Department and myself. We will be going down for a week, and we're going to be looking at employee engagement and looking at over 18 months how to increase employee retention, the things that we need to do from training perspective, from looking at employee job satisfaction, all of these amazing things that we're going to be spending time really talking about. What are those avenues? We want to put that in connection with the next year's time meetings, the July of 2026. It will be the time to look at our full compensation and classification study again. So we're going to wrap employee engagement, pulse surveys, redo our exit interviews to look at this idea of why employees should work at the City of Knoxville and why they should stay at the City of Knoxville. Missy alluded to the employer choice and the brain that we're going to be talking about. Missy and also the Benefits Department, Civil Service, HR, and the Benefits Department are working on this concept of employer choice. And it's going to be work where you're valued. So this idea of understanding and building and having a brand about the City of Knoxville is a place where you're valued. Now we got to get to that place that we're defining and what does that look like. But the Civil Service Department is intricately involved in this process to look at how do we understand our employees, our applicants, and knowing that they're working where they're valued as well. So I'm looking forward to that. Part of that other piece in this whole concept of this is this idea of longevity. And what we are getting ready to get involved in, hopefully by the end of this month, there will be a bid that'll come out to have consultants to come in to look at our current process of longevity. Currently, once you've been here after 4 years, you start getting $120 per month for every year that you, not per month, annually, excuse me. Annually, change that. Annually for every year up to a total of $2,400. This has not been changed in probably almost 25, 30 years. This same $2,400 has been there. And when we started looking at this, that equivalent of $2,400 in 1999 equates to $4,600, approximately $4,600 in today's times. So we have to look at longevity. We've had some recent discussions in town hall meetings about pay in public service and other departments, police department, fire department, looking at pay. And this idea of pay for years of service. We want to make sure people are recognized for their longevity in the city and not think of it as just part of their pay, but there's truly a recognition for your longevity with the city. So you'll see more data about that as well. And the last thing that I'll tell you about is at the end of the month, the last Thursday of the month, we're doing another supervisory training called Positive Leadership. And it's a book that we are looking at, and we have, I heard yesterday, 64, 65 people that have signed up virtually for this training. Guys, we are really getting people engaged and participating. So I just wanted to share those things with you. Thank you all. If you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, let's move on to, I don't think we have any unfinished business. Under new business, item 4 is request by KPD to exempt from civil service the part-time position of administrative specialist through October 1st, 2026. Any background, or do we need to also hear from folks from KPD?
Brooke may want to speak too, but I do know a little bit about it. KPD wants to extend a part-time position, and they checked with HR and benefits and finance, and they were all okay with that. Is there anything you want to?
Yeah, no, that's it. It's just an extension of a current person. They're helping us background recruiting, the recruitment, retention, cadets, PSRs. We just need that extra manpower for a little longer.
Do we have any questions about this request? We have a motion to approve.
Motion.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving item 4 indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
That motion is approved. Now we get to item 5, which is the rules update discussion. I think before we get into this, I believe we have an amendment, which I would think classify as a little more housekeeping rather than substantive on some things, and I'll turn to Devin Lyon to present that.
That's correct. Thank you, Dr. Lyons. And don't worry, everyone, I'm taking a seat here, not because I'm getting ready to give another 3-hour presentation. This will not take that long. These are housekeeping measures. Since last month, I have heard from, as Ms. Guptill mentioned, not very many people, but I have heard from the law department, from the HR department for a couple of revisions that I think would be appropriate. So I just want to go through, we've been, as I think you all noticed through the lengthy workshop presentation, we are certainly attempting to be as transparent as possible, and I am certainly attempting to explain these rules in as much detail as possible. So in that spirit, I thought it would be beneficial to go over, I think there are 12, 13 revisions that I have suggested based on that feedback received since the workshop. So I'm going to go in order, and board members, I don't know if you have a copy of the draft in front of you. If not, I will go into detail, so hopefully I'll give you enough information. You won't have to flip through too much. But if you look in Rule 1 relative to the definitions, the definition in section 102.2, this is the definition of appointing officer. There was an extra office or agency that had just been I had mistakenly left in at the end of that sentence. That's holdover language, so that has been, I'm suggesting that be deleted. In section 102.11, the definition of days from a calculation of time standpoint, I'm suggesting that the board consider including this phrase, excluding observed holidays recognized by the city. So that revision would simply clarify that a city holiday does not count as a day for purposes of calculating any time periods under the rule. Section 102.14, this is the definition of eligible. I'm suggesting that this section be revised to read, in addition to what's already stated, to also include this phrase, that it means an applicant who meets all requirements for a position and may be placed on an eligibility list. So that is, again, a housekeeping measure just to prevent that extra language being included elsewhere throughout the rules anytime we're referencing eligible. In section 304, I believe this is on page 6 of the rule revisions, this pertains to the merit board agenda. This proposal arises out of actually some comments that board members made during the workshop, just seeking clarification on the interaction between the board chair's ability to approve an agenda for a board meeting as that power relates to the consultation requirement, where the board chair is now required under these rules to consult with the Director of Human Resources prior to approving agenda. As I mentioned during the workshop, there is certainly no language in the rule proposal that would allow the Director of HR to change, alter, amend, otherwise impact the merit board agenda that would be approved by the chair. It's simply a measure to ensure that if there is, for example, any proposal that may come to a merit board agenda, if there's some impact that agenda item may have on HR, that HR can then take any proactive measures or be prepared or whatever they would need to do internally to be able to best and most efficiently effectuate that agenda item depending on the outcome from the meeting. But to further clarify, I'm proposing that an additional sentence be added to the end of section 304 that really just doubles down on the board's independence to set its own agenda. So that sentence would read, "No requirement within this section impairs the chair's ability to approve or request agenda items." So pretty straightforward. The next proposal is section 306, just a couple of sections later. This is the first of many revisions that you'll see follow this path. This section pertains to notice of Civil Service Merit Board meetings. There were also some comments made during the workshop that were asking, well, should we not also include designee language in some of these other rules as well, instead of vesting all these powers and responsibilities with the executive secretary? And the answer is yes. So in section 306, relative to notice of meetings, I'm suggesting that the board consider adding that the executive secretary or designee give meeting notices, distribute meeting notices, and ensure that they are compliant with all notice requirements. You'll hear other revisions I'm proposing that also incorporate this designee language, and that's also to really adopt what the city is currently doing in practice. It's certainly not possible for our executive secretary to engage in all of these functions at all times before every board meeting. So where there's an opportunity to provide for a designee, just to expressly include that in the rules, you'll see a few more of those here momentarily. The next revision is in section 502, relative to examination parts. This is on page 9. This is the same thing, simply adding "or designee" to the first paragraph, meaning that the merit board and the HR director may consult on examination parts, or they may consult through designees. Again, this is adopting current practices. In section 801, regarding veterans preference, this is page 13. The second sentence of section 801 was holdover language from the existing merit board rule. This language described veterans who may be eligible for veterans preference based on a disability status. That is no longer what the proposed rule, how it will delineate among veterans for purposes of veterans preference. There was previously this distinction where if you were an eligible veteran, you could receive 5 points on an exam. If you were an eligible disabled veteran, you could receive 10. Under the rules as proposed, that distinction is no longer in place. So any veteran of any type would be given equal consideration for application of veterans preference. So for that reason, this sentence is simply holdover language inadvertently included in the revision. So I'm suggesting that second sentence, and only that second sentence, be deleted. Section 902 is the next one. Rejection of applicants. In the final subpart, I believe it's subpart 4, this is another suggestion to add "or its designee" to the final sentence to allow rejection of applicants if they don't respond to communications from the board or the board's designee. Rule 10. I'm suggesting that the name of the rule be renamed to selection and certification instead of requisition and certification. And that's simply just to better describe the contents of the rule. Requisition is not really a key feature that's discussed in this particular Rule 10 any longer pursuant to the proposed revisions. And so just making sure that our verbiage is uniform about what we're calling our rule is what's motivating that particular change. In section 1002, pertaining to the Rule of 10, this is another or designee. That's simply adding, the suggestion is to add or designee to the reference to the executive secretary in that rule. Then Rule 11, this is on page 21, this pertains to probationary periods. The law department had astutely requested that we clarify how employees who may be called to active duty or other military leave, how that would impact that particular employee's probationary period, if they were in a probationary period when they left. When this occurs, this is actually governed by federal law, by the Uniformed Services Employment and Reemployment Rights Act, which is a mouthful, and that's why it's just known as USERRA. As I mentioned, it's federal law, so it's going to apply whether we state it in our rule or not. But to make sure that we're not inadvertently building in any sort of gray area about whether we're providing any additional rights or benefits or less rights or benefits from what USERRA requires us to provide, I'm proposing some additional language that would make it clear that we are simply moving forward to comply with federal law. And I'll read you what that proposal is. So this would actually be a new section added to the end of this Rule 11. So it will be a new section 1107 entitled Extension of Probationary Period for Reemployed Uniformed Service Members. And this would be the actual rule text. As applicable, the calculation of probationary periods shall be governed by the Uniformed Services Employment and Reemployment Rights Act, USERRA. Accordingly, military leave does not count toward the time required for completion of an applicable probationary period. Instead, notwithstanding any other rule to the contrary, the applicable probationary period will be paused from the time the employee begins military leave until the date the employee returns to employment with the city, at which time the applicable probationary period will resume for any remaining duration. So that's the rule text. In perhaps a little more layman's terms, what that means is if you are an employee who's called to active duty or otherwise eligible for USERRA protections, if you're on a probationary period at the time that you leave the city temporarily, when you return to city employment, your probationary period will pick up where it left off. So it's basically told or paused from the duration that you're out on military leave until you come back. Again, that's USERRA, but just to ensure that we don't have any gray area in the rules, one more provision just to specifically address that. The next one, and we're almost done, this is Rule 14 on page 24. This is simply a typo correction. There was a reference in the proposed revisions to section 1504 that should have been section 1004. So that's all that is. It's just a change to reflect the proper number. Rule 18, beginning on page 27. This is the disciplinary appeal rule. There were a few requests here also from the law department that I think are prudent. First, in section 1802.1, which is the first section under Statement of Disciplinary Action, this subsection of this rule pertains to how an employee is served with a statement of disciplinary action and how that's effectuated. The proposal is to incorporate some elements from actually the Tennessee Rules of Civil Procedure is what I'm suggesting, which would define how, if you were dealing with a civil lawsuit, how service of process could be effectuated against a party to one of those, to an actual civil suit in circuit court or chancery court. So the proposal here, the revision, would be to clarify that service of this statement of disciplinary action would be effective upon personal delivery to the employee, emailing the employee the statement of disciplinary action in a PDF format to the employee's city email address, or placement in the mail to the employee's latest address of record provided to the Department of Human Resources. So this revision also addresses circumstances of an employee, which I hope does not happen frequently, but if an employee attempts to avoid service of a statement of disciplinary action, I would also propose that we include a final sentence in this section 1802.1 that would read, the service requirement set forth in this rule is waived by an employee when the employee engages in efforts to avoid service of the statement. So as you would see in civil law through the rules of civil procedure, if an employee attempts to dodge service, there are other ways to ensure that the process can still move forward. We don't want to inadvertently provide any benefit to that sort of conduct. The second revision to this rule is the very next section, section 1802.2. This deals with an employee's signature on a statement of disciplinary action. And again, this is just a housekeeping measure to provide an additional phrase at the end of that section that states, an employee's refusal to accept and or sign the statement will not affect the validity of the statement or its service on an employee. So this revision has absolutely no bearing on an employee's ability to appeal disciplinary action. That's not changing in any way. It simply states that if an employee for some reason refuses to sign, that's not going to somehow invalidate the disciplinary action that may then be carried out against the employee. And finally, in this rule, section 1802.7, this subsection deals with certain actions that are not appealable or grievable. The suggested revision is to include at the very beginning of this subsection the additional phrase, verbal or written counseling. So in context, that would read, verbal or written counseling or an oral or written reprimand given to an employee or placed in the employee's file shall not be construed to be a disciplinary action which is subject to the review process as set out in Rule 18 or in the grievance procedure as set out in Rule 19 of these rules. So this change, again, we're simply incorporating current city practice into the merit board rules. This change has no impact on any other form of discipline. Those are still certainly appealable at an employee's discretion. It's just if it's a reprimand or if it's counseling, that will not be an appealable disciplinary act. The next proposal is actually applies to both rules 18 and 19. So again, that's the disciplinary appeal rule and now the grievance rule as well. There are, in two separate places in these rules, there are references to the Tennessee Rules of Evidence. And the initial proposed draft had stated that the rules of evidence may not apply. The revision that I'm proposing now would read that the rules of evidence shall not strictly apply. So again, this is a revision that would incorporate current city practice and what current city hearing examiners have been engaging in for many years. And also, frankly, I think this would be a benefit to city employees who may be involved in a disciplinary appeal or a grievance, in that they are not going to be held necessarily to the strict rules of evidence. They are not attorneys, and they are not expected to be attorneys. So softening this would certainly allow them to present evidence that they see appropriate and that a hearing examiner would allow without, again, making them comply with the rules of evidence that they otherwise may not be familiar with. And finally, again, both rules 18 and 19, there were certain internal references within the rules to other rules where the number of the rule is cited. And I had inadvertently, at some point, deleted a subsection after I had fixed all these numbers of the references in Rules 18 and 19. So this is just a corrective action to make sure that the proper rule is now cited. So all that's changing, that I'm proposing to be changed, is in a few places in Rules 18 and 19 where the numbers were incorrect, they are now compliant with the rest of the body of the rules. So those are the proposals. Again, there are a few of them, but they're minor, they're housekeeping, as Dr. Lyons mentioned. And just to clarify, these revisions have also been sent to the law department, and I think the law department has blessed them. And Missy, Nick, I believe that I've provided these as well to you all, and I don't think there are any concerns there. I don't want to speak for you, but that's my understanding. But those are the additional proposals that I have. Otherwise, the rules would be unchanged.
Okay, thank you. I guess the time now, we can obviously want to consider these all at once. I think we could go back through them unless somebody wants to pull one out, but are any of these rules that you would like to ask about or pursue any member of the board prior to voting on them? Okay.
Well, I know there's been so much time put into getting all this straightened out, and I'm pretty much in agreement with the suggestions that you have on those changes with that. I know, like I said, this has taken a long time to get here. I don't necessarily know that we need to rush anything through at this moment. I would have liked to maybe see more from public comment, so it's possible, I don't know if, even with these changes, I know they're minor and it can be approved, it might be still prudent to make sure we give employees and the public enough time if they do have anything else to add to that. That's just my suggestion, and I know unfortunately 2 of our board members aren't here too, so.
So are you basically moving, for now, this set to the next meeting, or maybe making a motion to defer to the next meeting to allow there to be vetting by employee reps and others? Or is that the motion you'd like to make? You think follows from what you said?
Yes, I just think it's, like I say, we are about to nail this down perfectly, and from my point of view, I don't know that another month can hurt that, at least to make sure our other board members too have a chance to look at that. So.
Okay. Okay, well, we could vote, before we vote on that, I guess right now what's on the table are the quote-unquote housekeeping rules. I'd like to also, while we're here, and since Ms. Guptill and Mr. Cash have come to have some discussion of theirs next, regardless of that at the moment. But so we'll take it as a motion to delay let's call them the housekeeping amendments into the next meeting, I guess the October meeting. You have a second?
I see.
Second that. Okay, all those in favor of doing so indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
I support that. Okay, and now let us briefly talk about the suggestions from Ms. Guptill and Mr. Cash. I went ahead, got the numbers that these relate to, and Ms. Guptill's was 309, the board attorney. And I think you raised a very relevant pillars get in the way here. That do we have sufficient, I have a question, do we have sufficient independence from the city administration? We're an arm's length organization by having the city law department staff this, as opposed to previously we have had our own attorney. Now this does allow, of course, us to seek outside counsel as recommended, and it specifies that we would seek that by making that request to the city's attorney's office to find one. So I think that's a very legitimate question. I'll just throw it open to discussion. Before I say anything, do y'all have anything to say? Are you okay with what we have in the rules, and you want to go back to considering any alternatives like having our own? And obviously, this is a matter we can delay voting on until next time too, if you would like, which probably makes sense, given that this just came up today as well, for the general public and for other employees to hear.
I believe, just like I say, is as long as we know at the end of the day when we vote on this that we have done our due diligence overly and allow more public board comments, I feel most comfortable with that.
Okay. I agree. Okay. Yeah, I do too. I think it's something to keep an eye on, though. I think, presently, I think, most of the time, 98% of the time, maybe, I think it's perfectly sufficient to have now Mr. Olds, our attorney, to answer questions. Occasionally, it's going to be possible that there really is something where we feel, members of the board feel that a question has come up that the administration is an actor in that, and we want more of an independent representation. And because the city law director does, of course, represent, is appointed by the mayor, as she pointed out. So I think I'm comfortable with the status quo as long as we have a board as always keeps that in mind, that you may have to actually operationalize the choice of an outside attorney occasionally. And I think, now I will ask, Mr. Lyon this, does this allow the board to independently choose an outside attorney?
It would allow the board to request an outside attorney from the city law director. And there's an important reason for that, and that's what the charter and code require.
Yeah.
For any outside attorney to represent the city in any capacity, that is exclusively the province of the law director.
Right. Now, hypothetically, let's take the imaginary horrible, that there's some disagreement between representing the board, representing the interests of employees and the city administration, some conflict. I guess then if the board were not satisfied after making the request, they could request a different one?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay, well, this is something I don't know, we have a formal, well, let's go and discuss Mr. Cash's request too, and then we can talk about it. Yeah, go ahead.
And Mr. Chair, sorry, just one other thing. I noticed that Ms. Guptill had also made a reference to the history of the board's representation. And I know I touched on this at least somewhat during the workshop last month. I don't want to go back through all of that. I'm sure none of you want me to either. But in general, I can tell you that from some extensive legal archaeology, for lack of a better phrase, that I had done for the city's equal employment opportunity report that I put together about 2 years ago now, I believe. This was a topic that came up in that. And I cannot cite you meeting minutes or chapter and verse from that report cold, but I can tell you that my findings, at least then, were that while the Merit Board has had historically over the last several decades essentially constant representation from outside counsel, that was a decision that sort of arose organically as far back as the late 70s into the early 80s. And it was never a matter that had ever been considered formally by a city administration, to my findings. It had never been considered formally by the city law department. It was just an arrangement that had been allowed to continue for quite some time. And as I mentioned, I think when you do look at the charter requirements and the powers and duties of the city law department and the city law director, there simply is not a charter basis for this board or any board to have its own independent perpetual attorney. And so this proposed revision here in section 309 would certainly incorporate those charter requirements, but at the same time recognize, as you've noted, there certainly could be instances in a hopefully worst case scenario circumstance where there may be a conflict. And under those circumstances, if the board were to request outside counsel of the law director, and the law director would seriously consider that, I have no doubt. And if the law director appoints outside counsel, then that would effectuate the board's desires while also making sure that we're charter compliant as well.
That's good. And again, I think I will take your motion earlier to mean we're not going to vote on any of the rules today, so we can keep this under advisement as well. But because we're not cementing these, we're not voting for these, and even though these were formal amendment requests, they were those presented in public forum, which we have and should discuss. Okay, let's go to the next set. Mr. Cash's deal with two sections, 508, I think I found the rounding of scores. Applicant scored 65 or higher shall consider passing. And then 1002 was having to do with the rule of 10, as it's labeled I think that the subheading was Rule of 10. Let me get the right page here. Yeah, Rule of 10, the executive secretary shall forward to the appointing officer 10 eligible applicants of higher standing. We did discuss both of these during your workshop presentation, so I wonder if there are any questions or comments the board members have on those. You feel the 65 score or sending 10 folks up has been raised, and make sure that we're in agreement with what's in the rules with those.
And I think more I would just defer to civil service department on feedback for that. If there's any concern related to the need to change it, because I know you all seeking out, position to position, what the application list looks like. We've talked about that before, so the amount of applicants per position looks like we're getting a lot now for most. So I do understand what Cash was saying with regard to, oh, well, if I just give you that whole 10 list, I can pick a larger number where I might have not been able to avoid some other important top candidates and that.
Yeah, it's obviously a trade-off situation. I can speak a little. The 65, I always find this interesting kind of thing because it depends on the test, as somebody who's been administering tests for like decades to students, sometimes the test is, in certain circumstances, you want everybody to get a 90. Given if the questions you think are least challenging, and you can put together a test where a 65 is a great grade. So it's a little arbitrary in a way, but I think it meets a tradition of that being kind of a minimal passing sort of grade in most circumstances. You think of the, 90 to 100 A, 80, a B, 70 C, 60 B, so I don't know that any number we wouldn't put in my opinion, wouldn't be somewhat able to be picked at, given the nature of what the test was, whether it's, I think if the test didn't exclude anybody, or on the other hand, excluded everybody, the test is either too hard or too easy, and you take that into consideration, folks, with preparing and adjusting the test otherwise. So I guess I am okay with that. Ms. Taylor, how do you feel about these two? Any feelings on them?
I don't. I'm listening.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I provide some context with that?
Oh, sure.
Just for full transparency, these were requests that we made. I consulted obviously with our staff. The 65 was one that we specifically asked Devin to include, and that was sort of based on a lot of past performance, and we obviously look at the test distribution as you've seen on a regular basis, and we felt like that was a better number than 70, which was in there. And there's been some recent examples sort of corroborate that. I think we all as a team felt really confident that 65 was the best number. And then in terms of the Rule of 10, that was also a proposal originated by civil service staff. And it really goes in tandem with the supplementation of referrals rule. What we're doing now with the Rule of 5, we found that 5 to be pretty inadequate. And we've spent a great deal of staff time supplementing referrals the way it's written now. So one person declines an interview or is ruled out for some reason, and we have to re-refer it again every time.
And we talked about this in the workshop.
Yes.
This is those very topics.
Yeah. So by going to 10, we give them a bigger list to start with, and then we make the supplementation, the threshold higher. So instead of every one, you have to have 5 fall out before you can re-refer it. So, and you'd ask specifically what the staff thought. These were our ideas, and Devin included those at our request.
The pass bill kind of came up from the board.
That's right. Yeah.
So, Officer Cash, I appreciate your input for all of this and everything in that. So,
Well, here's another one that now this is out public, this discussion is public, the suggestions, the 2 suggestions, well, actually 3 suggestions from 2 folks are, so, and if we're gonna then can have your motion include, we'll vote on all of these next time, the rules as provided, and these would be potential amendments. We have an actual amendment proposed to vote on, and then we would decide whether to formalize what these suggestions in public forum to an amendment if anybody chose to. But that seems to be the procedure that would follow, because we need a formal amendment to do that, to respond to Ms. Guptill and Officer Cash's suggestion. So I don't know that we need, but just to be clear, would you mind making the motion that we delay all voting on this, on the rules until next time?
I motion that.
Okay,
I see.
okay. All those in favor, would say aye?
Aye.
Okay, so we will consider the rules at the next meeting, and then everybody has this full month to reflect on it. Okay. I don't think we have any other business before the board today, so I'll entertain a motion.
Get so good. Sorry.
That's good. Motion second. Okay. All those in favor of adjourning? Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you.
You see that?
You're